Mark here at WhiskyWhistle. Royal Lochnagar 12-year Highland single malt Scotch whiskey. Probably available near where you are, and in fact the smallest distillery in the Diageo collection. Is this 12-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey one that you should be looking for on your next purchase, or should you walk on by? Stay tuned for the Royal Lochnagar 12-year Whiskey Whistle. Greetings folks, I'm Mark, your host here at WhiskyWhistle, your wise choice in independent whiskey and spirits reviews, bringing you whiskey review number 252. This is Royal Lochnagar 12-year-old Highland single malt Scotch whiskey. Oh, it's got almost a nice little sound there. Let's get that open and we'll get it poured. This happens to be the smallest of Diageo's single malt, the smallest distillery in the Diageo collection. And I quite like this one, and as you can see, oh my goodness, as you can see, I've actually made quite a work of this bottle already. I'm down to probably, I guess, about a quarter now after that heavy pour, and we're going to be doing two reviews at the same recording, and then they'll be split up. As you can see, I've got the Singleton of Glenord over here. That's an 18-year-old, we'll call it a bruiser of Highland, of the Highland region. And then we've got the Royal Lochnagar over here. And this one also very interesting, very lovely flavors that come from that one. All right, well, let's set that Singleton of Glenord 18-year-old to the side, and we'll focus on the Royal Lochnagar 12-year Highland single malt Scotch whiskey for this review. Royal Lochnagar 12-year-old is a 40% ABV Scotch single malt whiskey. Now, it's got a little bit of coloring, and it says so right on the back of this bottle. This says in both Danish and German, this says Farben erjusteret mit Karamell. And then in German, mit Farbstoff or Zuckercolor. So that tells us there's a little bit of coloring in there. And interestingly, look at these two different whiskeys. One's 12-year, one's 18-year. And, well, they're roughly about the same color. The 18-year-old is about one shade darker than the 12-year. All right, now we're going to check out the color of Royal Lochnagar 12-year, followed by the legs. Then we'll check out the nose, the palate, and the finish for the whiskey, and follow that up with a Whiskey Whistle whiskey score. So let's check out the color. Here we are. What do you see for color there? To my eyes, that's pretty much a standard whiskey hue, your typical golden color, something like around, 18 karat gold. Certainly nice to look at. It's certainly nice to look at, but keep in mind that there's a little bit of coloring added to this one. Not very much, mind. I don't taste it whatsoever. We'll get onto that in a minute. All right, now how about the legs for this whiskey? Royal Lochnagar 12-year-old. Let's stroll it around. We'll see what kind of legs it's got. Here we are. Well, pretty much medium speed legs, a little bit on the watery side, but look at that, there's still a nice little lip of whiskey left at the top of where that whiskey had touched the glass. And a few nice legs running on the back side. And in my experience, it's got a nice little bit of mouthfeel and a certain mouth coating quality that's quite nice. All right, let's get on to the nosing. The scent is intoxicating. I really like the way this smells. There's something beefy about this whiskey as well. A little bit on the rich side of things. So a little bit of sulfur, a long bit of copper contact, I do believe. And when you wait long enough, you get a bit of spiced lemonade with some mint. And fruit-wise, I'm getting a little bit of papaya, so a little bit of something tropical there. A little bit of tinned or canned pineapple as well. Some nice baking spices. Not especially a whole lot of vanilla. Some ginger, definitely ginger in there. Anyway, all in all, it's very interesting to smell. My mouth is watering. I'm really excited to taste this again. It's been a long time. I've set that aside, just waiting for the right time to review it, and I think that time is now. All right, well, cheers everybody. Let's try that Royal Lochnagar 12 year. It's very rich. You would not know that it's 12 years old except for the mouthfeel that is there. It's nice, not especially thick, but anyway, you get that little bit of chewiness to it, but especially the potency of the flavor is where it's at with this one. And again, experiencing this for the first time in a long time, I'm reminded that it has a nice long finish. And interestingly, all of these classic malts, well, not all of them, I should say, a lot of the classic malts, a lot of the Diageo whiskeys are matured in a big, massive warehouse. And there's a certain commonality between a lot of those whiskeys that are in there. I discovered one that isn't, which was interesting. That is Mortlach. So Mortlach has its own dunnage warehouses that gives it a very unique taste. This one, however, if you're familiar with Cragganmore and Glendolin and Glenkinchie and Talwini, Oban, these whiskeys have a particular flavor that's very, very sort of common, and that could be because they want to use the whiskey for blending for Johnnie Walker. This is probably one of the sort of key flavor ingredients in some of the Johnnie Walker blends. In fact, I think it's the 12 and the Blue Label. Okay, now I mentioned the size. We're talking only 400,000 liters of pure alcohol per year. So very small distillery, especially when you think that some of them are up to, close to 10, 12 million liters per year. All right, a little bit more tasting to go on here. Once your mouth gets acclimatized to the flavors, you'll get some fruit candies, also some kind of a hard caramel or hard toffee type of a candy as well. I can feel a little bit of pepper on the tongue, but it's predominantly a fruit event. It's got a very rich honeyed type of a flavor to it, and big on spices. I can tell there is some very interesting wood management going on with this particular whiskey. Now I write here, the palate has big flavor, some honey, a bit of florals, exotic woods, sweet spices, cinnamon and ginger. I don't get any clove here. And I wrote vanilla ginger syrup. Citrus fruits, a nice mix, especially a bit of grapefruit. Anyway, more like a ginger jam or a ginger marmalade. Now on the finish you get some big sweet honey, but I also get something kind of like a Negroni, the cocktail. Oh, it's very potent. It's got the herbs, it's got that sweetness to it. Interesting, really, really interesting. Rich spice, herbs, sweetness, and that just carries on, and it still has the candy fruits, even now as I'm smacking my lips. Very nice. All right, let's add some water to this one. Now, after I have finished the review with the score, I'll tell you a little more about this distillery. It's quite interesting. Stir that up. That should be good, I think. All right, how's the nose with water? Let's see. Little hints of peat are still wafting through there. That honey, oh, that's really strong. Honey, and interestingly, a little bit of strawberry. but rather than a fresh strawberry, more like a dried strawberry or perhaps a strawberry candy. I also get some citrus. Still very candied though. I'm going to go with strawberry candy. All right, on to the palate. Cheers again, everyone. Now with water added, that honey kind of shifts a little more towards vanilla. A vanilla type of a honey. There's a nice balance between the spices, between ginger and cinnamon. There's a nice brown sugar component, but it's balanced with these bitters. Now, I wrote here, with extra time, you get some serious dryness and something like lemon orange marmalade. It's really got a herbal dryness to it. And the finish now, very long lasting, sweet, lots of fruit, some herbs. There's a kind of a concoction, and again, this I wrote here, delightful Negroni, a nice Negroni with a curl of lemon peel on the top of it. Maybe candied lemon peel. Boy, be careful when you swallow. You might actually end up getting it down the wrong way. All right. Now, honestly, a lot of these notes, of course, are a little bit on the subjective side. Negroni. You know, I've only had a few Negronis, but it just really reminds me of that. And this is the way whiskey works with you. It'll be individual for you. For you, it might taste like perhaps an old-fashioned with an extra dash of bitters. Anyway, really, really nice. All right, one final sip. Well, let's talk about the WhiskyWhistle whiskey score for Royal Lochnagar 12-year-old. For me, this is a very interesting single malt, something that's different. It's got enough different qualities to it, and yet it has a commonality with a few of those other Diageo classic malts. So you'll recognize it, and it'll be a welcome addition to your home bar. So the WhiskyWhistle whiskey score for Royal Lochnagar 12-year-old Highland single malt Scotch whiskey, what's that going to be? It's going to be 87 out of 100. Yes, 87 out of 100 is the WhiskyWhistle whiskey score for Royal Lochnagar 12-year-old. All right, now, what more can I say about this? Well, I mentioned that it's quite small, but there's also some other interesting things, especially about their production, that I'd like to just let you know. This is from the scotchwhisky.com website. Great source for information on distilleries. A little bit different from some of the other websites. So this distillery has two very small squat pots, and it also has worm tubs. So it's in the same category as Craigellachie, and I believe also Mortlach as well, and a few others. That provides that heavy, rich flavor. And however, this says here that the distilling team actually works to lighten the flavor. What do? They get the wort clear, not cloudy, and the ferments are very long, so that should provide lots of fruity esters. The way in which the stills and worms are utilized, which makes a difference. They use a very slow distillation, and that maximizes reflux, the return of heavier alcohols and components back into the wash. They also open the doors of the still after distillation to allow air to rejuvenate the copper. So the copper is very active. Meanwhile, this goes on, the worm tubs are run warm. So what will a warm worm tub do? Well, it'll take a longer time to cool down, so that'll basically just slow it down and give it more copper contact. All right, and it says here, all of this maximizes the copper contact, it says conversation, and produces a new make with the aroma of dry grass, a background of fruit, and mid-palate depth. It is this weight which allows the bulk of the new make to be aged in ex-sherry butts. Now, is this especially sherried? Certainly not. I would probably say that it's about, I don't know, a little bit less than half, maybe like 30% sherry casks. All in all, it's very rich, very delicious whiskey, and I hope that you will enjoy it too. Well, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Go and get yourself a bottle of Royal Lochnagar 12-year-old, and stay tuned for the next one, number 252. 252, 253. What's that going to be? Well, I haven't quite decided yet, so you'll have to stay tuned. Oh, and don't forget about the new Patreon account, patreon.com/WhiskyWhistle. Get involved. There's lots to come on there, all right? There's already a newsletter out. Take care now. Thanks for watching Whiskey Whistle. Be sure to subscribe, and don't forget to give this video a like, and leave a comment down below. Be sure to stay tuned next time to join me, the host of the show, Mark, as I explore more whiskeys with you. Take care now, and we'll see you next time. Now, before we wrap up the show here, I've got two classic malts sitting here, a 12-year-old and an 18. Let's make ourselves a Diageo blended malt. Maybe that's something kind of like a, well, we'll call it kind of like a Johnnie Walker Green Label, but probably without the smoke. Let's see what we get here. And I really do encourage you to try mixing up your malts. Mix them together age by age, go through the 12, 15, 18, 21-year-old if you've got, and then mix them all together. You'll still have a single malt. And if you've got a lot of different kinds of whiskeys, then mix those together on occasion and see what happens. You might end up with something that's greater than the sum of its parts. So I get the caramel, I get the apple, I get that bit of strawberry. And it's really got a very, very potent nose. It's got a little bit of peat, but a whole lot of this kind of coppery, sulfury sort of a scent that's coming up my nose, but in a good way. It's got the leather from the older one, and the fresh fruits from the younger. Cheers, everyone. Well, I think I'm going to be enjoying that all night long. This is very nice. I'm not going to score it. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful mix. It's a Diageo blend. Give it a try, folks.